Well, good afternoon now. I'm David Tessmer. I'm the chairman of the Arlington Chamber of Commerce and also serve as Senior Vice President at Texas Health Resources. I want to welcome you to the 2014-2015 Arlington Independent School District Annual State of the District Luncheon Address. I'm honored to open up this informative, educational, and important luncheon. Well, we continue to set a lot of records. As you can tell, once again, we have a sold-out group here, so thank you. In fact, this event was completely sold out more than 3 weeks ago. That's a really clear indication that the community supports quality education here within Arlington. We really want to take this opportunity today to thank you and give our special thanks to all the teachers, administrators, and supporters committed to the advancement of education in Arlington. We appreciate all that you do, and let's give them a round of applause. And as I look around the room today, it's very obvious that Arlington and the North Texas business community recognizes the linkage between quality education and workforce. So thank you for your presence and your support. But before we begin, I kindly ask all of you to stand as the Texas 31st Air Force Junior ROTC, under the direction of Colonel Charles Kelly, U.S. Air Force retired, will post the colors.
Post. Colors. Present. Hoops.
Will you please join me in our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Hoops. About peace. Forward. March.
Please be seated at this time. At this time, I'd like to turn our program over to Wes Jury, President and CEO of the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. Wes is going to acknowledge our sponsors and recognize several special guests. Wes?
This annual event is made possible by our sponsors, and I want to begin by acknowledging the Arlington Highlands, our presenting board-level sponsor, and ask David Harvey, who made considerable effort to get here. He flew in from Chicago thinking he would come straight in. He was diverted to Austin, where he spent last night, got up very early this morning to fly from Austin to here. And so, David, thank you for your commitment, for the Arlington Highlands commitment. Please come forward and say a few words of welcome as our presenting sponsor.
So, yeah, it was difficult getting here, and it's really a function of how successful Texas is now. They canceled our flight, and it was not possible to get any other direct flights to Dallas because they were all full. It's a good thing, obviously, for Dallas. Well, Arlington Highlands is very proud to be the presenting sponsor for this State of the Arlington Independent School District event. I can say that I speak for our 106 tenants at the shopping center who very much appreciate the support that we get from all the teachers and the parents and the students who come there to shop. Even though the owners of this shopping center are from Chicago and Boston, we definitely recognize the importance of good schools and a good school system here in Arlington, Texas. It's a huge school system, 64,000 students, 75 schools, 8,000 employees. It's a major, I think it's the major employer here in Arlington. We find ourselves very fortunate that the Arlington has such outstanding forward-thinking individuals in the form of your Board of Trustees and Dr. Marcelo Cavazos. I'm sorry, I keep having problems with that. This has led them to set some very lofty goals for academic achievement for your students, and it has also set some lofty goals for the capital improvements that will be necessary to further move the system along. Now, I'm a member of the Arlington Chamber of Commerce, and it was really at various chamber functions that I first heard all of the Dr. Cavazos, Bowie Hogg, Jeff Williams, Dan, and Linda Diapert discussed the need for this bond offering to make the investments that are necessary here possible. M&J Wilco chose to support those, and actually Chris Gerber, who is our general manager, we supported it both financially, and Chris Gerber, who was our general manager, ended up doing a bunch of promotional things at the shopping center, which we think helped public awareness of the bond offering, because I guess it passed by a 70% margin. Congratulations. Now, the shopping center had a good accolade this year. We've been voted the official best lifestyle shopping center in Texas for 2014. Official best, I guess, comes from something CBS does. So now let's hear from what we hope will be the best school district of Texas. Next, thank you.
And as David was sharing his comments, he actually flies in from Chicago just to attend our board meeting, so you can see their level of commitment to our community. I'd also like to acknowledge our superintendent-level sponsors, Estes McClure and Associates Engineering and Consulting, Joris General Contractors, LBL Architects, Prologic Technology Systems, and Reliable Paving. Our principal-level sponsors, Farah Real Estate, Jacobs Engineering Group, Encore Electric Delivery, Texas Trust Credit Union, Tarrant County College, Southeast Campus, University of Texas at Arlington, and our teacher-level sponsors, the Association of Texas Professional Teachers, Cole Baldwig for Texas State Representative, Hayden Building Corporation, Jeff and Karen Williams, the Kroger Company, Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Committee, Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott, LLP, Schrickle Rollins and Associates, Southwest Bank, Tony Tenderholt for Texas State Representative, Tarrant County Commissioner Precinct 2 Andy Wynn, United Educators Association, the United Way of Tarrant County, and Workforce Solutions of Tarrant County. Let's give all of them a hand. Also our media sponsor, the Fort Worth Star Telegram, and our photography, Southern Flair Photography. You know, it really is all about partnerships, and as I reflect on what's happened, an outstanding bond election, the most recent accomplishment, it's a community. It's a public-private partnership. It really is the business community and the school district and the university and the college and the city and the county and many others, all truly working in partnership. And I think if we look around other communities, even in North Texas, we can be proud of what we see. Organizations that find commonalities, organizations that find ways to leverage their resources and work together. And the leaders of all of those organizations gathered here today to talk about how all of us play a role in supporting it today, the Arlington Independent School District. And tomorrow we may be talking about how we all support another one of these fine organizations, because the truth is we have to do it as a community. And today I acknowledge all the leaders here who represent that. Well, you came here to hear about Arlington ISD, but as one little sneak preview, you can expect to hear about an event we will host in September with Arlington ISD to talk about how to do business with Arlington ISD in light of the $600+ million bond issue that just passed. So stay tuned. I have a feeling some of you in the audience may have a passing interest in being a part of that conversation. Bowie, are you first? You're up. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Board of Trustees of AISD, Bowie Hogg.
Thank you, Wes. And let's start off, on behalf of my colleagues, with a big thank you. As we know, there was one huge item that occurred this last year, and there's nothing more to say thank you, and that was my daughter was born 3 weeks ago. So, if you like pictures, come on by. I've got plenty. Got about 40. Helen Caroline Hogg was born July 19th. I look a little better, caught up on sleep, because my wife knew I had to speak today, so she let me sleep last night. But my wife is a superhero on this whole thing, so thank you to all the ladies in the room as doing this. But while in my life, my daughter was the biggest bond to the community, we know what the biggest thank you was. And on behalf of my colleagues, I had to start off with just saying thank you. Thank you for the community to come out and help us pass by almost 70% the largest bond in the history of Tarrant County. Thank you. And you say bond, and this was not just about buildings. It was not about building things. It was about getting the AISD to the level it had to be competitive and be the leader in the education industry. This was a very visionary bond. It was part of our visionary Achieve Today, Excel Tomorrow strategic plan. This bond changes the look, the reputation, and the offerings of the district. But let me go beyond just what a bond does, because a bond's just buildings. But there's lots of things that have to come into place to make those buildings work. First, I'd be missing if I didn't acknowledge my board. The board we serve with, the team of 7, as we like to call it, the team of 8 with Dr. Cavazos. This is a very aggressive board. We all admit it. We all flat out go with that, and we like it. And we're willing to take risk. We're tired of people expecting public education to be average. I went to public schools. I went to Arlington schools. I didn't think they were average. We've got to make sure they're not average. And if we don't keep excelling, they will become average. We take risk. And as you know, elected officials, sometimes it's not the best idea to take a lot of risk, but we're not afraid. So to my board, I have to acknowledge you and say thank you. So if you would, just all please stand up. VP Jamie Solon, Secretary Aaron Reich, Assistant Secretary Jamie Hibbs, former President John Hibbs. Sorry, John. You go. I called Jamie twice. She probably deserves it on there. Former President, Ms. Gloria Pena, Mr. Peter Barron, former President. Let's call one of our old trustees, Mr. Tony Pompa, who just stepped off the board. And then the last, I want to recognize her specifically on this, as one of the most important things the board can do is find out who's going to be our next board member, because we have to keep our team together. So I'd like to recognize our newest team member and a great addition to the board to replace Mr. Tom Pompa's big shoes, Ms. Keisha Mays. Thank you, guys. Don't sit down. This is the most effective board I've ever worked on in the corporate, in the nonprofit, in the school board model. We've really taken to efficiency. How do we become more efficient? We try to tackle a lot of things, and how do we make ourselves more efficient, thus making staff more efficient, thus making our teachers more efficient, thus increasing the education for the students. We implemented a corporate model utilizing 4 board subcommittees to increase the detail and workload our board can accomplish. It's to help our staff to get quicker board feedback, thus making all groups more efficient. Our board's taken some other bold steps in this last year. We've implemented, and people across the state are asking, a managed performance empowerment model. What is that? It's a model that comes into place where schools that are performing at the right things have autonomy, and the overall level of governance is giving them more freedom. The better a school does, the more freedom they have to put in place they'd like. We've implemented a Studer Group Excellence program. It's a program that's tracking data to truly see, are we going through, are we reaching the next level of where we have to go for excellence? We constantly have strategic plan tracking. Lots of groups make strategic plans and then aren't monitoring their strategic plans. Every 6 months, we have an outside firm come in and review, where have we met on our strategic plan, and are we following our strategic plan? We've increased our community engagement, so much that we're giving awards to outside organizations to recognize those that are really responsive to us. We have a nice little recognition, and the board doesn't do much, but a little later in Dr. Cavazos' announcement, you'll hear a nice recognition about how much work and how recognized this board is. We've become known across the state. We constantly attacked on a legislative agenda. I look at all of our state reps in the room, our state rep candidates that are running, and they know we're going to have a presence. There's nothing more important than working with what Austin does. Most of our reps all believe in local control, and we fully believe in it. No one knows better than the community of what the AISD needs. And we're going to constantly keep fighting for it. Districts ask us. And annually right now, we have over $70 million in unfunded mandates that comes from Austin. Money that we're told to do, here's what you have to do, and we don't get any funding for it. But we keep going. We're recognized throughout the state for our lobbying efforts, for our legislative agenda, for tackling the approaches in each session. We plan to do it even harder in 2015. With that $70 million in unfunded mandates, we also have now passed, once again, a balanced budget every single year without going into our reserves. We have a very large fund balance, so large that we were able to fund an entire elementary school out of fund balance to be built before the bond was even passed. A huge step most districts have never done in the past. Our district for over 10 years has been recognized for financial excellence by the ASBO GFOA Awards of Excellence for financial reporting and financial accountability. We have the highest bond rating. And once again, we passed the largest bond in the history of Tarrant County. But how did we pass that? We passed it because it's all about our alignment of work. Our alignment of work went through, and I was just telling our friends in the Highlands, it was one of the easiest bonds from the board's perspective work because we'd done so much work before. We'd used an outside firm to do an analysis over exactly what we needed. It wasn't things of what board members thought we just needed in pet projects. That was not the case. It was a bond that was essential for what this district needed to have us at the competitive levels. But we did all of that through our strategic plan. People talk about this bond in the last year. Well, I'd tell you it started about 3 or 4 years ago. When we went in and our senior staff and our board made the aggressive approach and said, we're gonna have the best facilities for our students. Why? It helps the students learn. 2, that's what people look for when they move to neighborhoods. When people are moving to a community, they wanna see what facilities people have. It's important. It's important. Kids wanna be proud about the schools they go to. Nothing's more important than learning, but they still want to be proud about where they're going. And we recognize that from student feedback and from parent feedback during our strategic plan. But in that strategic plan, we made a commitment to the teachers. How do we commit to that? We have the highest starting salaries in the region. Why is that important? If we can get a teacher into the AISD and recruit the best and brightest, they're coming in and they're staying. We have one of the most competitive salaries for our teachers with more experience to keep them at that level. We have a commitment to staff and leadership. The staff and leadership, we did a salary market study to make sure they're competitively paid. What are the levels we have them at? And we're doing all this while keeping a budget within balance. We have a commitment to the students. We have increased our student feedback. What do the students want to see? How do the students want to react to this? How do they want to see what we're doing, how we're tracking, and where we're going? We're now starting to track students after they leave the schools on feedback to tell us how we've done. And then we're tracking them 5 years later after they've graduated to see how they're productive societies to this community, which is what our job is to do. We have a commitment to the community. You'll hear Dr. Cavazos talk about our partnerships. You'll hear us talk about recognition to organizations. We recognize one of our nonprofit groups every single month. We recognize a student of the month every time. Why? We know it's important and we can't do this on our own. So to everyone in the room, I thank you. I thank you for your partnership. I thank you for the work you allow us to do. I thank you for supporting the AISD because the AISD is about Arlington. And Arlington won't survive with just the AISD. It has to be all the other groups that are involved to help us out. But the most important thing we do as a board is we determine who's going to be our superintendent. And let me tell you, I think I can speak on behalf of the board right here. We couldn't have a better superintendent than Dr. Cavazos. Most of you know this man as Dr. Cavazos, Dr. C, Marcelo, or Mr. AISD. I think they actually had a pageant for that, Dr. Cavazos. You did well. I think you won. But let me tell you a couple of points about Dr. Cavazos before he comes up here and tells you exactly how we're moving forward as a district. He's been married for over 14 years to his wife, Nora. He has 2 children that are in the school in the AISD, Teresa and Diego. He started his career in the Mission Consolidated ISD and then leadership posts in Mercedes ISD and San Benito ISD. He then took a post with the Texas Education Agency in school finance and support. He served as a lecturer for the UTA College of Education. He has his PhD from the University of Texas. We'll tolerate that, Dr. Cavazos. He was in Austin. He couldn't go to A&M. I understand. It's fine. some of the boards Dr. Cavazos serves on in this community. He's on the United Way of Tarrant County Board. He's on the Workforce Solutions of Tarrant County, the River Legacy Foundation Board, the Arlington Chamber Board, the AISD Education Foundation Board. He's just elected officer of the Texas School Alliance. And all these things Dr. Cavazos does are critical. They are critical. They take time. But they're critical to the AISD's overall success and reputation. The most critical thing we do as a board is hiring a leader. And the most critical person we have right here is a visionary leader guiding the district daily. With that, I'm proud to introduce Dr. Marcelo Cavazos.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. And I will echo what Bowie said, not about me necessarily, but I will echo what he said about thanking the community. This is an event that we host every year, and every year we actually have more people attending. I know we won't tell the fire marshal or anybody else that, but we have more people attending. In fact, Wes Jury asked me today if he could set up another table this morning, and we said yes. I'm not sure where that table is, but you may know. The whole point is this, that we do want to thank our community. We want to make sure that we value the contributions you've made to our school district. And so it's in that spirit that we invited you here today and that we'll share some information. I have more content than I do time. And when I share that with principals, they kind of look like sad. But so don't look sad, because I have a clock back there, and I'm not going to keep going on and on. But I do have more content, and the reason we have more content this year is because of the things we're doing in AISD. And the reason we are able to do the things we're doing is because we have a committed staff and community and business partners committed to the education of over 64,000 students. And it's with that commitment that we're able to have more content about what's happening in AISD. And I'll tell you, because you know how I deal with these things, is we're going to share as much as possible, including areas we need to improve, areas we've done well, and then a little look into our future. So we will begin just reminding everyone about the vision and mission of our school district. And our vision is to be globally acknowledged as a premier school district. And I'll tell you the mission statement, the last probably 3 lines there: maximize the potential through relevant, innovative, and rigorous learning experiences. That's the key. And we keep that in the forefront of our work every single day. And we look for our framework for success. And you've heard this before, because when we launched our strategic plan, these 3 things were our drivers. And they continue to be our drivers today. This board is very committed. The staff is very committed. We have not lost focus. We're true to our strategic plan, and those are the 3 drivers: inspired learners, effective leadership, and an engaged community. We feel so strongly about those 3 things that if one of them is missing, we feel we cannot be successful. And so under inspired learners are effective teachers and principals and people that contribute directly to the education of young people. Effective leadership, that's all of us in the system, development, and then an engaged community, and that's where you come in, the PTA, the foundation, Education Foundation, and others. Just as a quick reminder, I think it's important to reflect a little bit about who we serve in AISD, who we serve today. We serve close to 64,000 students, and our numbers fluctuate because we have mobility. So this is the latest snapshot. It'll rise to 64 plus, close to 65, but 64,000 approximate students. That's our ethnic breakdown in our population of students. And I think it's important to reflect a little bit about who we serve. The economically disadvantaged. We have 70% approximately economically disadvantaged students in Arlington ISD. And I think that's significant so that when we talk about the work we're doing in AISD, that we have a filter and a lens that we look through. And that economically disadvantaged, that close to 70% of our students economically disadvantaged, that right there is the game changer. Not only for Arlington, but for the state and the nation. If we serve all our students well, everybody is productive. If we serve our economically disadvantaged students exceptionally well, society changes. That's the game changer. And so it's important to note that in our population, we have a lens that says we're going to serve all our students well. But we also understand that many students come from a disadvantaged background. And our commitment is the same. The rigorous learning is the same. The standards are the same, so that all students are successful. So let's take a little bit of a peek at our district performance results. Some of these results are still coming in. You've seen it in the newspaper as recently as Saturday, I think, that they had an article about our performance and things like that. So some of this is still in draft form, and some of it is pretty much set. Very quickly, the accountability system in Texas continues, I think, for year 2 now in terms of the comprehensive accountability system. And it's supposed to be easier to understand. Like I told you last year, it has not gotten any easier to understand. However, I'm going to make it as simple as I can. There are 4 indexes. Index 1 is student achievement. Bottom line, it looks at achievement of all students. And in Texas, the achievement really deals with, did you pass that test, that standardized test? And so in our district, our entire district, our district as a district, I should say, and all campuses except the Newcomer Center, and Newcomer Center is an alternative campus, has its own accountability system, but all campuses in the district met the Index 1 standard. And I think that's very significant when you look, and I challenge you to look at the TEA website that's populated with districts across the state. It's about 1,200 different districts with thousands of schools, and compare our performance to them. But all our campuses, except the Newcomer, and that's an alternative campus, and the district met the standard. Index 2 looks at 10 student groups, including ethnicities, ELL, special ed, whether they're making progress. And this is significant because from year to year, are students making progress or not? So the standards will continue to change in terms of increasing, and the key for a school district and a campus is for students to continue to progress. And in our district, the entire district and all campuses met the standard in Index 2, which means that all our students are progressing to that rigorous level of standards. And I think that's significant. And again, I challenge you to look at other districts and compare our performance. You pick any district you want in Texas. Index 3, closing the achievement gap or the performance gap. This is basically comparing your economically disadvantaged students and other groups in terms of the achievement, and if there's a gap, is it closing? And in essence, our campuses and our district are closing the achievement gap. We have 2 exceptions. We have Newcomer Center, again an alternatives campus, and Wimbish Elementary that did not meet this Index 3. But we have over 75 campuses, and so the majority of them have met it. But again, this is about being transparent and who meets it and who doesn't. But I'll tell you that the Index 3 is very significant. It's very significant for the state. It's very significant for us because it's closing that gap. Index 4, post-secondary readiness. And this is basically the graduation rates and our students achieving at a level that gets them ready for college. It's that simple. And so in our district, the district met the standard, and all campuses except Sam Houston and Webb met the standard in our district. And this is about college readiness and post-secondary readiness. That's about as fast as I can do a snapshot. There are many formulas on that. I think it's important to keep a context. The state standards for these 4 indexes are that first line. Index 1, standard. In other words, you have to get a 55 or better in this index for your district to be meeting the standard, okay? Index 2 is 16, 28, and again, those are formulas, and you come up with a number, and so those are the numbers, right? And I want to demonstrate here a little bit that in AISD and that line, and the distance we have in between the standard and our performance. And I think that's significant because some people sometimes may think, well, how close are you? When you say the district met it, are you close to that standard? Are you at risk at that standard? And we have a good amount of breathing room between the standard and our performance. That's the highest level as you can break this down. And so I'm very proud of the work of the teachers and the students every single day as they meet not only these standards, but other local standards. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Distinction. So with the accountability system, campuses can receive distinction based on their performance in relation to campuses that are like them across the state. So I'll say that again. distinction of performance in relation to campuses like yours across the state. So this is not just Martin and Lamar and Arlington and comparing among high schools here. That's one comparison. This is comparing schools most like them across the state. And so distinctions have been earned in our district and our campuses. 34 of the 69 campuses eligible to receive distinctions received at least one. So that's close to half of our schools receiving a distinction for their performance on the latest accountability results. And I think that deserves a round of applause for these schools. So 2 of the 6 high schools, 11 of the 12 junior highs, and 21 of the 51 elementaries received distinctions. 2 schools received all their distinctions, Ferguson Junior High and Ashworth Elementary. These schools got all of the possible distinctions. Again, comparing to schools like them across the state, which is a rigorous comparison because you've now kind of eliminated the variances and you're really comparing schools that are alike. And then 12 schools received at least half of their distinctions, and that's Seguin High School, Bailey, Gunn, Hutchison, Shackelford, Beebensee, Beckham, Ditto, Duff, Piercy, Swift, and Williams. If I don't mention one of them, I'll get feedback. I'll get an email, I guarantee you. So that's why I do that. But 12 of them received at least half of the distinctions possible. So this is another way of looking at AISD's performance. But we've talked about here before, in previous State of the District, that we're not only concerned about the state accountability. It's very important, not minimizing it, but our district is concerned about so much more. And so when we look at our district and the leadership of the board and staff, we develop a scorecard that goes beyond state accountability. Now, the scorecard that's developed for AISD is locally developed, which means that our standards are set by our school board and our staff, which I can tell you, and this is a plug for any kind of legislative ears that are there, that the best decisions, the most impactful decisions are made at the local level between our school board and our staff and our students and our principals. And so this is a result of that local control. And you can see that much better than I can on this little TV, but you can see that. And this is our district scorecard results. And it says draft because we're still getting our information. All of this is posted online. Every single bit of this is posted online, so you don't have to try to figure all this out. But I'll just give you a sense that the things that we're concerned about include those 4 pillars, those headings up in the top. Student achievement, which we talked about just a minute ago. People, how we treat our people, how we treat our staff, our parents. Service, the service we provide to the campuses. And finance, how we take care of the funding in AISD and the money. So beyond the state accountability system, we have a scorecard that we've produced for our district. And I think it's impactful. And you see the red and yellow and green dots. That's about as easy as I can make it. Sometimes staff kind of cringes because it's like, but it doesn't tell a story. Well, it tells a dot story, right? And so a dot story is better than no story. And it keeps your attention, hopefully. So in some cases, we're red. We did not meet our standard and our expectation. But in some cases, we're green. If we're yellow, we're making progress. And so some of that includes the on track to graduation, which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. It includes our performance in terms of the indexes. We ask our employees about their workplace condition, and we expect to improve on that. And so that's categorized there. We ask our parents about their satisfaction with our schools, and we exceeded that. Our finance with our bond proposal that Bowie talked about, our balanced budget, our strategic investment in the district. Those things are measured and then accounted for. And so I want to commend our board and our staff and everyone who takes ownership of this. And by the way, there's a scorecard for every leader in our district. Every principal has a scorecard, director, assistant superintendent, area superintendent, CFO. This happens to be mine. And so we're very transparent about that. All right, so what guides our work? You've heard a little bit about our performance, and as fast as I can do it, I think it's important for you to keep a sense of what guides our work every single day in our district. And what guides our work is pretty simple. Access, excellence, and innovation. That's the filter we use. Access to excellence and then an innovative district. for students. Access to us means availability of learning opportunities for all students, all of those 64,000 students. Excellence is quality beyond minimum standards. Not only excellence in the classroom, but excellence in the leadership, excellence in our area superintendents, our assistants, our directors, people that provide service, excellence across the system. And then innovation is designing new and unique opportunities for students. So just to give you a framework, that's what guides our work. So how do we accomplish this? This is our performance, our strategic plan, that lens we look through of access, excellence, and innovation, the fact that we serve 64,000 students, 70% economic disadvantage. How do we accomplish this work? And I'm going to give you some of the highlights of our district in this last year, and it's also looking forward into the future. We've adopted an instructional model. And that may sound a little bureaucratic, and I apologize for that, but an instructional model that says this is what we expect in every single classroom in Arlington. And when you talk about 70-plus schools and thousands, 4,000 teachers, et cetera, to say that this is what we expect in our school district in a classroom is very important. And so here we've adopted our instructional model. It's very simple in terms of the title. It's 7 strategies for learning, really framed around where am I going, where am I now, and how do I close that gap? Sounds familiar? Sounds a little like a business model, if you ask me, for students. But it provides students with a clear and understandable vision of learning, uses examples and models of strong and weak work. It offers regular feedback, teaches students to self-assess, to guide their own learning, and then design lessons to focus on one learning target, teach students a focused revision, and then engage students in self-reflection. Where am I going, where am I now, and how do I close that gap? Clear, but powerful in our classrooms. If our students receive this kind of a framework every day in the classroom, our performance increases. And guess what? The students that we talked about, the 70% economic disadvantage, for example, a structure that's very clear, that leaves nothing to chance, is critical. It's critical for all our students. But when you leave nothing to chance in the instructional system and delivery, your likelihood of success is much greater. Positive behavioral interventions, the first couple of them are a little business kind of bureaucratic, but positive behavioral support. And that is, and I'm not going to read all that, but this is our discipline framework. If one of the things we receive feedback from our staff and our community is about discipline, and over, and guess what? That's been true for years in public education, because it's a never ending, and it's something you cannot lose sight of. So we've adopted a system for discipline management that cuts across all grade levels, and it's basically designed to improve student academic and behavior outcomes. That discipline is not separate from academics. I'll say that again, discipline is not separate from academics. They're together. If we separate them in the system, we've done a disservice to students. And so we've connected those through this discipline management system. K-12 on track to graduate. We have a system in AISD that measures whether students are on track to graduation. The bottom line is students must graduate from high school, right? And so K-12, this is unique to Arlington ISD, that K-12 on track to graduation. Yes, we know if kindergarten students are on track to graduation. And that is powerful because it connects the work across the system. This is not a deficiency model, it's an improvement model, right? And so when you know if a student is off track to graduate, then guess what? You do something about it, right? And so K-12 on track to graduation is huge and is very important in our school system. Arlington Collegiate High School at TCC Southeast. Notice it's Arlington Collegiate High School at TCC Southeast. This is an opportunity for students. In August, which is now, in a couple of weeks, students will enter this collegiate high school and have an opportunity to earn a high school diploma and an associate's degree upon graduating from high school, which means we've aligned, thank you, absolutely. And TCC has paid for this building. They pay things cash, and so they paid for this building. They partnered with us and built this facility for AISD. And when we talked about a couple years ago that we have to be leading the way in education, This is one example. K-12 reports, PBIS, all those are examples of leading the way in education. And so our collegiate high school opens this year. We had over 400 students apply to go to this collegiate high school. And what they're applying for is to give up their high school experience for a collegiate experience, right? We could take 125 students. That's the maximum allowed by this design. And so the students were interviewed, their parents were interviewed, and that's significant, and we'll get to here in just a minute. Their parents were interviewed. And so these students have that opportunity to better their future. And we say often that students' present is not their future. Doesn't have to be. Their future can be very different. About 90% of the students attending the Arlington Collegiate High School are economically disadvantaged. About 90%. That's who applied, that's how we got the interest and things like that. But I'll tell you, that's a game changer for the students and their families. Over 38 elementary schools, we have about 50, 38 elementary schools are represented in the students that applied. All the junior highs are represented. So I say that to kind of draw a conclusion here about what this type of program does for a community. If you think about 38 elementaries represented, all junior highs represented, that's all over our district. That's our entire city, if you will, in terms of AISD, that has an opportunity to be impacted. Because we know that if you improve the life of a young person and their family, the community changes. So I really want to highlight that. We'll be doing our first day of school activities there, I think, with Bill. Bill's going to let us in. I'm kidding. Which, by the way, this is located at TCC Southeast. That's part of the partnership. The building, the facility is located TCC Southeast. Texas Trust Credit Union partnered with us this year. Jim, right there. Jim, absolutely. And I'm glad you clapped before I even said what he did, but Jim and Texas Trust Credit Union stepped up and said, every student, after a little bargaining, every student, inaugural student, the 125, every student will receive, upon admission, which is August now, and upon graduation will receive a $1,000 scholarship from Texas Trust. They graduated from high school. Now, the $1,000 scholarship really represents a connection that your financial literacy today as a freshman in the Arlington Collegiate High School has a huge impact as you get out of high school. So part of that support from Texas Trust is helping students make good financial decisions and their families, right? And so Jim, we thank you. And you also gave, I think, $35,000 to TCC for this project as well. So over $100,000, stop me, Jim, when I get too high. No, over $100,000 that Texas Trust Credit Union provided for our students and the future of Arlington. It's not just about our students. As much as I talk about our students, it is about the future of Arlington and our state and our nation. Bound for Success, that's Dr. Kabari. And Bound for Success, the top 20% of our students in AISD receive automatic admissions to UTA. When you become a junior, you get a letter from UTA, if you're in the top 20%, that you're automatically admitted to the university. And what that does to the populations that we serve all across our district is it breaks down those barriers. It reduces the anxiety about, am I going to get accepted? Where do I apply? How do I apply? Do I wait till my senior year? No waiting. You're accepted, top 20%. It motivates students to keep on being in the top 20%. Beyond that, UTA has made a commitment to send counselors and financial advisors to our high schools, each one of the high schools, to keep this top 20% cohort engaged and to make their dream of going to college a reality locally here in Arlington. Dr. Kabari, thank you for your partnership, UTA. Our STEM Academy, and these are kind of real time. We just talked to the board about it Thursday. Our STEM Academy at Martin High School, another partnership with UTA where students are able to take dual credit in science and math courses at the university, again with UTA. If you're familiar with our dual credits program, very successful, but mostly in government, English, psychology, history, which is outstanding. Students earning credit over and over. This STEM Academy allows students to earn credit in science and math courses at the university level when they're in high school. And so we'll be accepting our first 100 students at, I guess, the spring semester. AISD Police Academy. Our police academy with UTA and AISD and Arlington Police Department, giving students an opportunity and a pipeline to become a police officer in Arlington, so that students who are interested in law enforcement are engaged in our school system and make a commitment to stay out of trouble and all those things that are important to become a police officer. And so the police department will train some of our students and our staff, and they'll provide that instruction. UTA will provide the dual credit courses, and we'll provide the foundational courses. Because when you make a pathway clear to students, their likelihood of success is huge. If you're just thinking, and you're a junior student in high school, and you're just thinking of being a police officer, but there's no pathway, there's no clarity, it's very difficult. It's left a lot to chance. And we don't leave things to chance. And so we had this great partnership announcement. We have our first group of students already selected to start this year. Texas Health Resources, Arlington Memorial Partnership, has partnered with AISD to do a couple of things. One is to provide space for AISD students to learn in the context where someday they may be employed. And I can tell you, and if you know anything about hospitals, hopefully not in a bad way, but if you know anything about hospitals, space is a premium in hospitals. But Arlington Memorial has found some space so that our students can meet there for instruction and do clinicals. And if you don't know anything about hospitals, for our students at the high school level to be able to do clinicals is huge, because there's so much competition from college students to do clinicals. Kurt King and others at Arlington Memorial said, come on over. And I said, well, we need a classroom. And he said, okay, come on over. I said, we probably need an office. And he said, okay. And we've seen this space, by the way, so it exists. But our students, he wasn't able to make it today, so I can say just about everything. But our students will be taking courses at Arlington Memorial. Our instructors will be there partnering with the hospital to give them access. And remember the thing we talked about earlier, access. Access to what? Excellence. It's one thing to learn this information in a classroom. It's another thing to learn it in the hospital. And then innovation. I challenge you to find another hospital who will let kids in to be productive in their programs. And so thank you to Arlington Memorial Hospital, Texas Health Resources. We had our Transformation Through Innovation grants. These are students who are transforming their learning in our classrooms. Transformation Through Innovation, students inspired to do their very best using technology. I'm going to use one example here, a mobile app development that students did for an elementary school. These are students, high school students, who found a problem at an elementary school where students were struggling with math. And they went down to the elementary school to get more information about that, came back through their coursework and developed an app specifically for the students. Then they went back and actually implemented it and saw the success that the students had. Talk about taking it from your problem to your solution to your evaluation from the student level. And the power in that, when students, high school students went to ask elementary students, tell me what's giving you problems with this math, and then let's go find a solution. And it didn't take 10 years to find a solution, by the way. They developed that app in a semester and went back to that elementary school. This is the type of innovation that needs to be pervasive in our system. Fuel Up to Play 60 and Healthy School Zones, partnership with the Dallas Cowboys, United Way, and Dairy Max, where every campus in our district has healthy initiatives and strategies for students and the staff, so that we know that healthy students learn much better. And so we partnered there, and we're looking for future partnerships with the Dallas Cowboys, by the way, if you know anyone there. Just kidding, looking to the city here. But actually, we have a discussion coming up as for a partnership with the Dallas Cowboys and the stadium. Not so much the Dallas Cowboys, but the stadium. And the things that that stadium has in terms of learning opportunities for students. This was a huge partnership for us. This is a partnership we have with Tarrant County and the Juvenile Justice and SMU. and it's an elementary and junior high attendance initiative. Many times when we start attendance programs throughout public education, it's usually at the high school level. We're starting at elementary and junior high. And SMU is partnering with us to measure whether the interventions actually work. How novel. But it's true. Usually we plan programs, we develop programs, we implement them, and we just hope they work. SMU is actually going to help us measure whether the interventions work so that when we propose to the board to fund it ourselves, we have the measurement that says this works or this doesn't work. This has to do with engaging the parents and calling the students and all kinds of different strategies. All right, standards-based report cards. You can't see that for a reason because there's a lot of standards. But the real reason is this. Our K-1 and 2 instruction is so critical for our district. And so they're the first group that has a standards-based report card. And what that means is that math, if you get an 80, it's no longer a mystery. Or in language arts, if you get a 74, what does that mean? Standards-based report card means that you know exactly the skill, and we tell parents and we train parents, this is what they need to be successful. These are the standards. And so the clearer the standards are at the K-1, 2 level, the better likelihood of success for everybody, including the teachers. As Bowie mentioned earlier, we gave students a voice this year. Over 15,000 students in our district were surveyed and had a voice about their instruction, if they were engaged in the classroom, if they felt safe about our facilities. 15,000 students. And boy, did they speak. Right? They told us 6th graders, 8th graders, 10th graders, and 12th graders. That was the group. And they told us about our condition of our schools. And a lot of it was very positive. But some of it was things we have to work on in our school system. Online registration. Online registration was launched this year as a way to connect with parents in a different way, reduce the redundancy, increase the efficiency that Bowie talked about, online registration. When you think of online registration for 64,000 students, it can be a little daunting because that's a lot of information. So far, 34,000 students and their parents have registered online thus far in AISD. School hasn't started. It's a great number. Arlington Collegiate Family Center. This is one of those recent ones. Where's Maryland? Somewhere. Maryland, from United Way. At our collegiate high school, we are going to provide resources for the parents and the families of the students that attend the early college high school. Why? Because we know that there's already a commitment, but there's also some challenges with the families and the students of early college high school. United Way has agreed to provide all the resources and the connections for the parents. And what are those resources? Job training, continuing education with TCC. TCC is part of that as well. Skill development, interview skills, all for the parents of the Arlington Collegiate High School. So thank you, United Way, for that. Our parent university, we launched our parent university this year and had many, many parents involved. I'll tell you what they're learning right there, why we use this picture. They were accessing for the first time their students' attendance and grades online. They were given a code. Every parent has access to this. Kids, they want us to not tell anybody about this. But we tell everybody we meet. Your parents can log in and get to a computer, or we provide a computer, etc. You have real-time information about your students' work, their grades, their attendance, missing assignments, and all that. I tell parents all the time, don't wait 6 weeks. It's too late. Every day you can check this. And every time I tell the parent, the student says, stop telling them that. But every day they can check whether their students are turning in the work. And we get alerts. I say we, because I have 2 kids. So yes, I admit, I get alerts also. If there's a missing assignment, the parents get an alert and it tells them, this assignment is missing. And our teachers have been committed to keeping that system populated so that it's real-time improvement. Competitive compensation. This is the initiative Bowie talked about, where our board took a big step of analyzing the market, contracting that out, and then adjusting those salaries where we were not competitive. And that's not an easy thing to do in the environment we're in, but it's important for our employees, and it's important for our district to stay competitive. We hadn't done a competitive study, I think, in over a decade. And we felt that. And so the board took action. In the middle of a bond and all this kind of stuff, I'm just going to be transparent about that. The board said, we're going to continue. That's part of our strategic plan. If it comes back that we need to make an adjustment, a mid-year adjustment, we're going to do it. Because we've made a commitment to our employees to be competitive. And they did. Made a mid-year adjustment. So I thank the board for that. Financial excellence, Bowie has talked about that before. We continually get awarded for transparency and fiscal responsibility and things like that. Emerging Leaders Program. This is a partnership with Raise Your Hand Texas and New Leaders and Arlington ISD. If you're not familiar with Raise Your Hand Texas, it's a nonprofit that supports public education. And Emerging Leaders is an investment that we've made on our staff that wants to be, or in our staff that wants to be an assistant principal or a principal in our district. And so this is the first cohort of the Emerging Leaders Program. Raise Your Hand Texas has invested $1.3 million in AISD. They're funding this program for AISD. We're the only district in Texas that has this program. They sought us out because of the work that we do together as a board and a staff. And they go to districts where they're high functioning, visionary, and cutting edge. And we know we need a pipeline of employees to take leadership positions. 1.3 million over 3 years investing in our people. And they selected this cohort, and so it's outstanding. Raise Your Hand, Texas. Thank you. We've had several board presentations, as Bowie mentioned, across the state and outside of the state to make sure that we're leading the way in informing and improving public education. We don't have all the answers, but we have some of them. And when we do, we share them with others throughout the state. And remember the Bound for Success and other programs that we've mentioned. Districts are trying to replicate that. They're calling Dr. Kabari and pressuring him, right, Dr. Kabari, to Bound for Success and all this kind of stuff. They're trying to replicate the things we're doing. Our fire academy, police academy, our collegiate high school. How did TCC pay for that, for the district and all that kind of stuff? Bill has all those answers. But this is our board stepping up and saying we're going to lead in this state. And by the way, there are 1,200 approximately school districts in Texas, which means there's about 1,200 superintendents. So if that's not, I won't say scary enough, there's about 1,200 school boards in the state of Texas, right? And so we have a huge state and a lot of public education and a lot of systems. 9 of those 1,200, so boil it down to 9, have been selected as finalists for Board of the Year. And so this group of individuals is one of the 9 that are statewide Board of the Year nominees. And the reason is quite simple, because they've taken steps and have not looked back and been forward-thinking about the improvement of our school district. So congratulations to the board and everyone. Thank you. This next slide speaks for itself. Thank you to everyone involved in our bond. Bowie mentioned it earlier. Our bond was successful, and not because of one person or a group of people, but because it was a collective effort. But I do want to take a moment to recognize our steering committee, the ones who developed some of this, and our PAC. Would you please stand if you were part of the bond development or the committee or the PAC? Please stand. Take a good look around. They didn't do it by themselves, but let me tell you, this group of individuals spent hours and hours and hours as a collective commitment to our students. It's nice for the adults to work in a premier school district, absolutely. But first and foremost, it's for our students. These individuals spent countless hours and time away from their family to make sure that our district transforms, that it keeps up, that we provide new opportunities, that we have a demonstration of access, excellence, and innovation. And so I want to thank you publicly for the work that you've done. I've thanked you personally many times, but let's give them one more round of applause. This is our projected timeline. I want to just give you a snapshot. All of this is on our website, by the way, everything I'm speaking of today. This is a projected timeline of our major projects, the big projects, the new construction and things like that. What's not in here is the condition repair and things like that that are all over the system. Just to give you a sense of our estimated timeline. If you recall, our bond is a 5-year bond, all of it to be completed within 5 years. Very bold. We're going to ask you again, so all of you that stood up, it was for another reason, because we're going to come back to you and others in the community and ask you for your input. We're going to create design teams, and you can see the list of design teams, projects for design teams in phase 1 and 2. And we're going to ask the community, the staff, the students, the staff, the community, people that stood up, help us in terms of design of these facilities. So it's not in isolation. It actually meets the vision that we had, and we stay true to that. So that's just to give you a snapshot of what's coming. This is the last slide for me. Leading the way, Arlington ISD. What you can expect this coming year is for this to continue, for our board to continue to be assertive, innovative, for our staff to continue to be committed to students and their learning. What we can expect collectively is for AISD to continue on the path to being a premier school district. And I'll tell you, like Bowie said earlier, we cannot do this work alone. It's not one person or a group of people, it is a collective community. And if anything in these past slides inspired you, it should, because they're connected to students. And when we connect our focus to students, whether it's finance, facilities, instruction, we cannot lose, because our students are depending on us. And you know this as well as I do. Today our students are depending on us. Tomorrow we're depending on them. And the better job we do today, the better future for all of us. Thank you very much for attending today.
Before we let Wes finish with us, we want him to come up here. But we started talking about how we recognize partnerships. So each year at this event, we plan to do some recognitions. And we're starting off with 2 awards we'd like to present this year. The first is our Community Partner of the Year Award, presented to Tarrant County College. Bill, would you please come up here? And Bill, let me read a couple of things. Tarrant County College has always been a tremendous partner to the district, and the 2013-14 school year was no exception. In addition to providing dual credit courses for students and serving on various committees, this year included the development of Arlington Collegiate High School at TCC Southeast. The leadership of Dr. Coppola and Mike Santal on the development committee was instrumental. Tarrant County College also funded the building that will house our early college high school starting this fall at the cost of over $13 million. Thank you, Bill and Dr. TCC. Our last award we're giving is our Business Partner of the Year. And this year, our Business Partner of the Year award goes to the Texas Trust Credit Union. Jim, would you please come up here? Texas Trust Credit Union has been an incredible partner this year and every year as we prepare to open Arlington Collegiate High School at TCC Southeast. They provided $35,000 in funding as part of the partnership with the district and TCC. Even bigger is a commitment to provide scholarships for graduates of Arlington Collegiate High School. Students of the class of 2018 each receive who graduate with both a diploma and associate's degree and meet other criteria will each receive a $1,000 scholarship to continue their education. With 125 students in the Snargle class, that's a strong commitment from an outstanding business partner, along with all the other work Texas Trust does for all of our schools in the district. With that, thank you so much, Jim, and congratulations.
The standard and the bar have been set. If you aspire to be one of these partners of the year, you know what to do. Build a school. Give significant scholarships. Make a real commitment. You know, there's an old story, trite but true, about a chicken and a pig walking down a road. And they saw a needy family, and the chicken elbowed the pig and said, "Why don't we give them a ham and eggs dinner?" And the pig smiled at the chicken and said, "That's easy for you to say. You just need to make a deposit. I'm going to have to make a total commitment." We've recognized people who have made total commitments today. Our superintendent, our school board of trustees, and the many partners. But all you've got to do is look at about 64,000 faces in those schools. You know why the commitments were made. So thank you all for being here. The Chamber is pleased to be both a partner, an advocate, and a supporter of Arlington ISD. The school bond election is behind us. In September, we'll talk about how we build all of this. And in January, we'll be in Austin advocating for additional things that we're going to need in terms of resources. Because I trust you know we can't keep educating more students with fewer dollars. So thank you for your participation and your commitment. There's more to do. I know we'll rise to the occasion. We're adjourned.